Hello everybody, hope you're doing well, and I'm not. Now, last year I did make a video which was all about 10 very scary albums, but this time I'm going to make a video a bit more specific on music with jump scares. Nah, I'm only joking, don't worry, in this video there isn't going to be any jump scares whatsoever. So yeah, jump scares and music, that's a bit weird, but I'm going to show you 10 examples of where I feel that there is music, where there is moments where you're like, well, yeah. So the first couple of songs I'm going to be talking about is actually music in the past. I'm not talking centuries ago, although there is a classical piece of music which is quite infamous for being a bit jarring. I mean, it used to make my Nintendogs get a jump scare. Poor things. I wonder how they're doing. Yeah, but both of these albums actually came out in the 70s, so not really a time that you'd expect there to be jump scares in music. So first off, I'm going to be talking about The Cure. Gothic group, you know, very creepy imagery in a lot of their lyrics. A lot of their music videos are usually quite haunting too. But I'm going to actually be addressing you guys to the debut album. Three Imaginary Boys has a song, and this also has a song too on it. This is a US version, I believe, of Three Imaginary Boys, Boys Don't Cry. Has a lot more singles on it. Both versions have a song called Subway Song. So this song, already, as soon as you play it, is creepy because of this prominent bass, which is very catchy actually, but there's these like harmonicas going on, and it's just got a perfect atmosphere of just being down in the subway, and something's not right. And you can't help but not listen to the lyrics because Robert Smith, even though he's whisper quiet on it, is right in the mic, and it's just so chilling. And it's about a story basically of a girl that's trying to get home, but something's not right. She feels like she's not alone, and Robert Smith even goes, "Turn around." And let's just say she makes the mistake of turning around and something happens. Moving on, I'm actually going back a few years in the past, and I'm going to be talking about suicide. I want to address you guys to Franky Teardrop, which I feel if you've looked into this video, you're probably already aware of this song because it's well known that it's probably one of the highest regarded scary songs ever made. It's 10 minutes long, and it's just literally is a journey to hell. Literally a journey to hell. It's a horrible story about a guy called Franky, Franky, and he does a few naughty things. Probably get a little slap on the wrist from the devil when he meets him eventually in hell. And for its time, I believe 76, when it was at least recorded, oh my god, wow, what a journey, and not a very pleasant one. This next little section I'm going to be talking about is songs where in the songs themselves they go from quiet to loud, and that in itself is a jump scare. And I'm going to be starting off with the first time I was ever jump scared in a song, and it's one of my favourite albums ever. We're talking about Elbow, very popular in the UK. Otherwise, I don't know how popular they are elsewhere in the world, but they're a fantastic Baroque pop, art pop, chamber pop, rock group. And singer Guy Garvey, one of my favourite singers ever, just a brilliant sort of crooner, baritone, just great vocalist, but rambling. I first listened to this when I was 12, because it came out in 2008, and the first song on here, Starlings, is the perfect example of quiet to loud, because it's just very subdued for ages and ages, and then suddenly you just get hit with this wall of brass instruments, and it happens throughout the song, and you just never know when it's coming really. It doesn't really have a pattern to it too much either, because when the song develops and Guy Garvey comes into the song, they kind of just go away for a while. So it takes a handful of listens, let me just tell you that, before you can be like, 1, 2, 3, bah! Like that. It's a great song, but I've got to be honest, especially because you're just expecting it to be a chamber pop song. When I first heard it and it was in the car with my parents, everyone just went like, whoop! Like they're like we went over a huge pothole or something. Yeah, but a great song nonetheless, but pretty scary. The next one I'm going to be talking about is Scott Walker. Now, Scott Walker is again a bit like Elbow, prominently known for chamber pop music, especially when he was in the Walker Brothers with the famous song "The Sun Ain't Gonna Shine Anymore." Now, are you aware of his material that he made post the Walker Brothers? Now, he just kind of immediately started making creepy music in the 70s. In fact, when he reformed with the Walker Brothers, he made a song called "The Electrician," and that's a creepy song. And then he made an album in the 80s called Night of the Hunter. That's a pretty creepy new wave sort of album. But years later, which is known as the Trilogy, he really went into his own in terms of making very, very creepy music. And it starts off with Tilt. Now, with this album, I would have just loved to have seen an old Scott Walker fan listen to this for the first time. Oh, it's been a while since Scott Walker's made an album. I'm going to be picking up this Tilt album, great. And I listened to the first track, Farmer in the City, and even though it's dark, it actually still does sound like a typical 60s Scott Walker song, again being kind of Baroque pop. But wow, when it goes into the cockfighter, bloody hell, the first minute and a half you can barely hear it, and you're just like, turn it up, what's going on? Here's the whole song like this, and then just these industrial beats and clangs just bam, just get right into the song, and you're like, what? And Scott Walker just looms over the instrumental like a haunting ghost, and he basically keeps up that caricature for the other two albums too. So that song, creepy as hell. Then we've got The Drift, and this just takes it to another level. This is basically a nightmare of an album. The whole album I would recommend as being extremely scary and not for the faint of heart. There's a handful of songs on here that fits the description of what I'm going on about this video perfectly. Mainly songs like Jessie. Donkeys, if you don't like to hear distraught donkeys, don't listen to that song. Jolson and Jones. But the main one I've got to be on about is The Escape. What the hell? I'm not even going to tell you about anything about this song. Just go and listen to it, and I'll guarantee you'll just be like, what the? My favourite of the trilogy, the last one, Bish Bosh, which again takes it to another level, to the point where it kind of becomes bizarrely humorous and just how outlandishly terrifying it is, and just strange, very strange album, but I love it a bit. Now again, a bit like The Drift, there's a lot of songs on here I could highlight, but the main recommendation is going to have to be to this song. You might want to write this one down, it's not too memorable, in its title. SDSS 1416 plus 13B, Zircon, a Flagpole Sitter. You got that? Now, this is an over 20-minute track, and the whole thing is just a hodgepodge of just everything cooked up together in a nightmarish stew. But there is a certain section where he does an impression of an old woman. I'll just keep it as that. Scott Walker does an impression of an old woman, and that is probably the biggest moment where I've gotten chills from a song, especially because I wasn't expecting it. So I'm not going to say a timestamp or anything, just again, go into the song, listen to it, full experience, and oh my god, what an experience that is. Next artist I'm going to be talking about who fits the bill for having quiet and then suddenly loud music is Little Ugly Mane, and I'm sure this guy is endorsed or has some sort of partnership with all of the underpants companies out there, because they'll be making a killing for all of those poor souls who put on his music. Now, I love Little Ugly Mane, but it is frustrating the way he does it, because it doesn't really add to the sound or anything. I feel the way he does it, it is basically like a practical joke for the listener. And two examples I'll give, one of which is on the EP Uneven Compromise, which I highly recommend that you listen to because it's a great EP. But the last 30 seconds of it just comes out of nowhere, just these awfully disgusting sounds. And it just really is like, whoa, what? And the most annoying one, which I'll never forgive him for doing, is there's an album that he's got called Third Side of Tape, and it's in volume 1. Now in this, on the second part, I believe it is, there's this, it's full of like really luscious beats, at least the first portion of this track. And then just out of nowhere, just these, it's even worse than Uneven Compromise, these sounds. It sounds like, you know when you've got an old a cassette and you're rewinding it, imagine that, but like turn up 50 decibels and put up the pitch. It's that bad. It's so frustrating. I'll never forgive you for doing that, mate. I'll never forgive you. Now the next few songs which I've put into a category is where there's an album that has a song which can be maybe quite soothing, tranquil, just rather quite peaceful sounding, but it transitions into something which is a complete contrast. So the first one I'm going to be talking about is, there's an artist by Youbou who made an album called The Origin of My Depression, and this isn't a joke of an album. This is a very, very intense listen, especially for the whole message of the album too. Very recommended, but again, not for the faint-hearted. However, I am going to be recommending a song called Appalachian Joy, which is mostly quiet. Maybe I wouldn't say soothing, but it is a hell of a contrast compared to the next track. So what the song does is that it is quiet at first, but it builds up heavier and heavier and heavier until it's almost earphone shattering. And then it just cuts into the next track, which is called Please Don't Leave Me. And the way it's done is, of course, like I say, very creepy, but at the same time expertly done, because it starts off with Youbou doing this gasp of breath like she's woken up from a nightmare, but the track itself straight after that breath is almost like she's woken up from a nightmare, but then reality is actually worse, because the whole song is just unbelievably terrifying. So again, recommending 2 tracks there technically. Next we'll move on to Clippin', which is an industrial hip-hop group that have made many examples of scary songs in their career, but I'm going to be touching on not 2 songs here, but a 3-song transition. So we're going to be going back to the self-titled debut by them, and the first track that I'm going to be talking about on this album is Dream, and as the name suggests, this is a very dreamy track. In fact, it kind of lulls the listener in a very false sense of security, because one of the main percussive instruments, I suppose you could call it, is a singing bowl, as if you were actually falling into a deep slumber. But then it cuts off the track after having about a minute of pure just bird song and just very nice aquatic sounds of waterfalls into the song Get Up, which is literally just an alarm clock throughout the whole track. I don't want to get into it too much, but it's fantastic the way that the alarm clock sort of builds up and harmonizes and such. But again, it's an alarm clock, it's going to make you go, whoa. And it actually gets worse, because the track after that is called Or Die, like Get Up or Die. And I mean, the whole track's noise in itself, but the track just starts with the just huge wall of static and noise. And again, just kind of shows how Clippin' are very clever in just constantly building up the suspension and building up the tension in the music. We're next going to be talking about Pig Destroyer, which is a grindcore group who made an album called Terrifier. And this is an example where the transition happens literally at the start. So from the get-go, you know you're going to be in for some shit. So you've got the intro, which again, mostly quiet, but it just goes into the first proper track of the album called Pretty in Casts. And it's the only real thing that makes you make a mess of yourself is the scream at the start. Now I know grindcore is quite known for the very abrasive vocals, but the way it's done here, just especially since it just kicks off immediately with that, is guaranteed to just make you really, really surprised. But great album nonetheless. And the last few songs I'm going to be recommending you guys isn't really in a category, but they're both great tracks and also examples again of jump scares in music. So the first one I'm going to be recommending is Death Pierce Me. This is the self-titled track by a black metal group called Silencer. And even without knowing the sort of music these guys make or listening to the music, you just need to read up about the stories behind this band, especially the vocalist, and whether they're true or not, it's definitely intimidating, the stories that exist about the group. And yeah, the first track, yeah, mostly quite peaceful sounding considering it's black metal, but does it hit you? Not so much the drums and the guitars suddenly coming in, but this vocalist. Well, one of the stories, let's just put it this way, one of the stories that, which is apparently true, is this guy got his vocals by literally self-harming. So imagine those used as vocals. And yeah, it just blows your ears off. It's monumentally loud. And it's what makes the album very controversial, not just because of the stories behind it, but just it's very divisive amongst people who think that the vocals are just weird. But you can't say they're not unique, and you can't say this album as a whole is just not a unique experience that's definitely suited to Halloween. And the last one I'm going to be talking about is an artist called ORourke. Now, this album is actually a very peaceful, quite soothing album. I mean, I know ORourke for working with Sonic Youth and his earlier albums, and even just albums that he made throughout his discography afterwards too, should show that he's not afraid to double his toes into the experimental territories. But this album, like I say, is just a very good singer-songwriter album. But I want to point you out to the last track on here. This track is called Life Goes Off, and it's actually my favourite on the album too. Great track, but I don't know why he decided to do it, but this album, for no apparent reason, just ends with this gargantuan wall of noise, which you definitely don't expect from listening to the rest of the album. Oh, and also I want to quickly point you guys out to Devin Townsend, his debut album, Ocean Machine. This kind of takes it a step further to this album because it's even more soothing and tranquil, even if it is technically a metal album. But a bit like this, the last track, in fact the last 10 seconds. I mean, why'd you do that, Devin? You see this? I developed that because of you. Thanks. Anyways, so thanks very much for watching, everybody. Hope you take care of yourselves, and bye for now. See? I told them, didn't I, Mr. Skull? I didn't actually put any jump scares in this video, did I? No, sorry. I wouldn't do that with my fans. Nope. Not at all. I would not do that. You can go now. Come on then, let's go. Video's done. Of course you think, just because the video's still going, I'm still going to put in a jump scare. Of course you think that. Who do you think I am? I wouldn't do that. I'm a better person than that. I'm very disappointed that you think I would do something like that, to be honest. No siree. Nothing. Nothing whatsoever. I'm not going to do anything. But you're still here. How are you, man? Just go. God. I mean, do you just want to join me, sit here? And this is all I'm going to do for the rest of the day. I'm just going to sit in front of the camera. I've got nothing else to do. I'm going to talk to Mr. Skull, who's one of my mates. Mrs. Spider, she's one of my mates. They're my only friends, actually. I like them because they don't backchat to us. They can't leave because they're inanimate objects. They can't walk off. So I can talk to them as much as I like. And they're not going to leave me. I like that. Yeah. They're me mates. What's that? when am I going to jump scare them? I'm not. I just told them. You don't think that, do you, Mr. Skull? You don't think... You do? You think I'm going to jump scare them? None of you guys trust me. Nobody trusts me. Nobody. I don't even trust myself. Am I going to put a jump scare? Am I going to do it?